is this intellectual language. So we can refer to something that is very well known now in the modern culture when we're talking about the two hemispheres of our brain. Actually, we have three. One that's more instinctive, and then we have one that's more related to language and math and these structures. Another one's more intuitive, more creative, more female, and another one's more male. Okay. So when we're talking about language, we can find a female way to use the language, like using poetry or creating stories. Or we can find a male way to use the language, like giving analytic structures and definitions, separating, categorizing, for example. So both things might be useful, but the question is, how do we use the language in order to create with the language an experience? That's the point about elements management. It's not about avoiding to use the language totally. It's more about how to give an experience through the language that can be a universal experience for every human being, independently of the culture. So if we use poetry, we learn that everyone in school, every person that reads a poem might find a different kind of meaning of it. And that's the purpose of art, to call in each of us a different kind of experience. So that's true, and that's fine. It depends on perception, it depends on our background, it depends on how we associate the poem, the words, right? And what is the conditioning we have. The same can happen when we read a story. The story, if it's well written, will call in each of us a different kind of experience, different kind of emotion, and we will probably focus ourselves on particular aspects of the story. But that's not the only thing that we can accomplish. Elements management works with a great mandala. We call it the great mandala, with 9 inner mandalas. Within each inner mandala, we find a series of principles between 5 and 9, or what we call the elements. So these elements are giving us a particular perspective, or we can perceive reality through each of them. So we have 9 systems or models of perception that are working together into a great model of perception. So we can find different kind of dimensions of the object, situation, or system that we would like to interact with. If we use these models of perception, we're setting up a kind of a structure, but we're not telling the people what they have, how they have to perceive. We're just giving them particular windows to perceive through. It means like we are helping them to focus, for example, in the experience of water, and try to identify the most fluid quality of the text or the circumstance they're reading or experiencing. And then we're dealing with the water mandala with the element of liquid water. And so anyone can identify in a situation something that one can perceive as fluid, as liquid. So in that way we could help people to focus into certain aspects of the experience, and in that way introduce them to these different levels of perception or awareness that elements management produce. So we can use the language in that way, the system of elements management to approach a text. But it will work only if you or the user know these elements management perception models. If somebody doesn't know, then if they read a text, they will not have the possibility to use elements management. So you need to know elements management in order to apply these perception models. Somebody had to show you first how to use these perception models. So going back to your question, how to use language. When we write a story in elements management, we intend to bring different elements and principles of our system into a dynamic together. Dynamics that we can find in nature, for example, or in between humans. In a very, very easy way, we can perceive them into this nature or human environment. So when somebody reads the text, might at least identify 1 to 3 meanings in the experience without much effort. And it's because we're using the same principles to build the stories and to build the text. if somebody is training elements management, this person might find up to 9 levels of meaning, depending on the capacity of the elements management practitioner. So in that way we use the texts. And we could even use very analytical descriptive text for elements management, but in this analysis we will use words that refers to these elements that have probably 9 levels of meaning. So we might combine different levels, like level 1 to level 3 and level 5 simultaneously, depending on the situation. So how to do all of these? Then you need to first know or access the knowledge of these perception models and elements through experience of it, and for that you need a facilitator that gives you the first insight. And after you get the first insight, it's very easy to do it by yourself and develop a lot more according to your own capacity. And second, you need to become able to be perceptive. It depends on your own capacity to connect to different levels in parallel of the language. So we use language, but we use it probably not in a way that everybody is used to. We use language connected to experience. And when somebody reads a book written with intention to describe what elements management is or what the method does, need to remember that in order to understand this book or this material, an experience is necessary in order to fully understand it. An experience provided by elements management. Otherwise, they will understand probably 1 to 3 levels of it, and that's not elements management. Mm-hmm. Elements management is the totality of at least 9 levels. And I think that's probably the most important challenge for people trying to understand what elements management is and does. But at the same time, you find in this language the richness of the system. Mm-hmm. It gives us freedom and flexibility and is adapted to every individual capacity. So that's the way we use the language.
Okay. Yes, I think this was a very interesting interview. Thank you very much, Daniel. And at the end, like to say, we were talking for some time about things. It is actually difficult to talk because it's something that goes beyond language. But still, thank you very much. It was very interesting.
Thank you, Maximilian. I wish to talk to you one more time in the future.
Sure.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.